Max Verstappen just said something that should terrify every Red Bull fan. In a recent interview with Formula1.com, the four-time world champion admitted he's not too worried about dropping out of title contention. But here's what's really happening behind the scenes at Red Bull, and why Verstappen's calm response might actually be the most concerning part of this entire story. Let's talk about just how dramatic this fall has been. We're looking at a driver who won 56 out of 65 Grand Prix victories between 2021 and 2024. That's an 86% win rate during his peak years. This is a man who made winning look routine, who turned Sunday drives into victory parades. But in 2025, according to the official Formula One results, Verstappen has managed just 2 wins, Japan and Imola. 2 wins. From a driver who was averaging 15 wins per season during his dominant period. The numbers tell a story that's almost impossible to believe. And here's where it gets worse. As reported by multiple sources including Sky Sports and GP Blog, Verstappen currently sits 97 points behind championship leader Oscar Piastri. That's not just a gap, that's a chasm. To put this in perspective, that's equivalent to nearly 4 Grand Prix wins worth of points, with only 10 races remaining in the season. But the most telling statistic comes from Red Bull's Constructors standings. They're fourth in the team's championship. And according to pit wall data, of Red Bull's 194 points this season, Verstappen has scored all but 7. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda has essentially become a passenger in what was once the most dominant car on the grid. But here's what nobody's talking about, and it explains everything that's happening right now. At first glance, you might think this is just a natural cycle in Formula One. Teams rise and fall, regulations change, competition evolves. Verstappen himself seems to be taking this approach. In his interview with Formula One, "Calm, assistant," he said. "I had many years before that where I didn't have a winning car, so that's Formula One, and you know that, so it's not a very hard thing to do." This sounds reasonable, mature even, a champion who's learned to accept the ups and downs of the sport. The media has largely portrayed this as Verstappen showing grace under pressure, maintaining professionalism while his team struggles. But when you dig deeper into the technical data and insider reports, a completely different picture emerges. This isn't just a natural dip in performance. This is a fundamental breakdown at multiple levels. According to detailed analysis from motorsport.com and The Race, the RB21 car suffers from what engineers are calling something fundamentally wrong. This isn't my assessment. This is Verstappen's own words, as reported by Tribune after the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. The technical issues are staggering. Multiple sources including Racing News 365 and The Race have identified that the car has an incredibly narrow operating window. What this means is that tiny changes in track temperature, setup, or conditions cause the car's balance to completely fall apart. Verstappen and his engineers have tried multiple configurations throughout race weekends, with team radio frequently capturing frustrated exchanges where nothing is working. But here's the revelation that changes everything. The tire overheating issues. The RB21 can't manage its tire temperatures, especially on medium-speed corners. This creates a cascading effect. Overheated tires lead to unpredictable braking, which causes front or rear locking, which destroys driver confidence, which leads to even worse tire management. It's a technical death spiral. The aerodynamic data tells an even more concerning story. Compared to McLaren, who have emerged as the class of the field in 2025, Red Bull is losing approximately 0.3 to 0.5 seconds per lap during race runs. In Formula One terms, that's an eternity. And this is where Verstappen's "not worried" comment becomes truly fascinating, because the internal situation at Red Bull suggests he should be very worried indeed. The departure of Adrian Newey has left a technical leadership void that's becoming impossible to ignore. As reported by Racing News 365, Red Bull is undergoing what they're calling a rebuilding phase, with new team principal Laurent Mekies trying to restructure the entire engineering approach. But here's what makes Verstappen's calm demeanor so intriguing. This is his 200th race with Red Bull, a milestone that was reached at the Hungarian Grand Prix, according to Formula1.com. During those 200 races, he's achieved a 32.5% win rate. That's not just impressive, it's historically significant. If he stays until 2027, he'll break Lewis Hamilton's record for the longest stint with a single team. Yet when asked about his future, Verstappen told Formula1.com, "I'm very focused on 2026 with the team, to look ahead and make sure that we nail the regulations." Notice what he's doing here. He's looking past 2025 entirely. He's essentially writing off this season and banking everything on the 2026 regulation changes. This isn't panic. This isn't frustration. This is calculation. Verstappen has done the math, and he's concluded that 2025 is a lost cause. The question is, what does he know that we don't? Because there's one aspect of this story that nobody's connecting, and it reveals the true scale of what's happening at Red Bull. Let's connect the dots. Verstappen describes Red Bull as being in a slight rebuilding phase, but the data suggests this is far from slight. When a team is struggling with fundamental car balance, losing their chief designer, restructuring their technical leadership, and having their four-time world champion essentially surrender a season, that's not rebuilding. That's crisis management. The stakes become clear when you consider the 2026 regulation changes. Formula One is introducing new technical regulations, and as Verstappen told Formula1.com, Red Bull is betting everything on nailing these new rules from the start. But here's the problem. They can't solve the current car's issues, so what makes them confident they can master an entirely new set of regulations? McLaren's dominance this season isn't just about having a better car, it's about having a better development process. While Red Bull struggles with setup sensitivity and narrow operating windows, McLaren has built a car that works across different conditions and circuits. This development philosophy advantage doesn't disappear with regulation changes. It often becomes more pronounced. The broader implications are staggering. If Red Bull can't recover, we're potentially looking at the end of an era. Verstappen, at 27 years old, could be entering his prime years without a competitive car. And with his contract running until 2028, he's tied to this rebuilding project for the long haul. But there's one element of Verstappen's response that suggests he might know something the rest of us don't about how this story ends. Verstappen's calm acceptance becomes more intriguing when you consider his track record. This is someone who's been through Red Bull's struggles before. He joined them in 2016 when they weren't winning championships. He knows what a rebuilding phase looks like, and more importantly, he knows what it takes to emerge from one. His comment that, "The team has gone from winning championships before I arrived to when I arrived, a bit through a rebuilding phase, and then we really hit the peak again," isn't just reflection, it's prediction. He's essentially saying, we've done this before, we can do it again. But the unanswered questions are massive. Can Red Bull solve fundamental aerodynamic and mechanical issues that have persisted throughout 2025? Can they develop a completely new car for 2026 while still struggling with their current platform? And perhaps most critically, will Verstappen's patience last if the rebuilding process extends beyond 2026? The timing of his contract extension through 2028 suddenly makes more sense. It's not just about loyalty or money, it's about giving Red Bull enough time to complete their rebuilding process. Verstappen is betting 4 years of his prime on Red Bull's ability to recover. So when Max Verstappen says he's not too worried about dropping out of title contention, he's not showing complacency, he's showing strategy. He's already written off 2025 and is banking everything on Red Bull's 2026 gamble. The question is whether this calculated patience will pay off, or if we're watching the beginning of F1's next great what-if story. What if the most naturally gifted driver of his generation spent his prime years with a team that couldn't build him a winning car? What do you think? Is Verstappen's confidence justified, or is he being too patient with Red Bull's rebuilding process? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines in Formula One.